Hey everyone, it is Alex again, and I am back with another video for my next build of the league. This is actually going to be a one video build. I ended up playing it just throughout the weekend and into Tuesday without making a video. I apologize for that, but I was pretty much just enjoying the character, trying to do some grinding for the next character, which I am very excited about. But enough about that. This is me playing through a strand map. I've been doing Legion farming. And so I'm going to go ahead and just show gameplay of what I've been farming, which is pretty much just Legion, Red Influence, and Sanctum. Speaking of the video in front of me, this is me attempting doing a bit of the talk over gameplay thing. So if this is better, if this is what you guys like, I've been getting some comments about my placement of the recordings of the gameplay at the end of the video. I'm trying this out. I know this is a style that a lot of YouTubers go for, and so if this is what you guys like, then let me know in the comments. Throw the video a like. If there's any other changes that would be better for how I present the gameplay, then go ahead and let me know in a comment as well. I will definitely be reading them. So, anyway, that all out of the way. This is Frostblade's Trickster Varunastra. So we are using the unique sword Varunastra. So what this sword does is it gives you, it's around a 400 PDPS sword, and it has a line on it called "This counts as all one-handed melee weapons." So this is swords, axes, claws, daggers, and one-handed maces. It counts as all of these weapon types. And that includes, this is different than, say, Rigwald's Amulet, where it only affects increases of damage and crit chance and that kind of thing. This means everything. So, absolutely all scaling that applies to any of those one-handed weapons will apply to this weapon. So, as we'll see in my tree in a bit when I go over it, I take advantage of this mostly with the dagger, claw, and sword scaling. And a little bit of axe as well, actually. As for why I went Trickster, it's pretty much just because I wanted to. I wanted to do a Trickster. I haven't done the new Trickster yet, and I went CI for the hell of it, really. Hybrid is almost certainly better. Perhaps even just a pure life Slayer version of this build might even be better. But I decided to go Trickster, and I had quite a bit of a blast with it. As you can see in the video, the clear is pretty decent. I've only got one Ancestral Call, like one additional strike. I'm not running Ancestral Call. My gloves are only +1. That's the only additional strike I have. A slight downside of being on the right side of the tree. So the clear isn't as good as it could be. I tried crafting +2 gloves, but they were too expensive. And then the single target is looking somewhere in the range of about 5 million-ish, 4 to 5 million with all the buffs up. Right now, I do have a few free open sockets in the build. You could probably slap an additional Ancestral Warchief totem in there to work on top of the protectors. So the build right now is sitting at around 4 to 5 million DPS, depending on all your buffs being up and how high your elusive is at the time. It did nerf Withering Step, so we're no longer guaranteed to have our elusive up above 150%. My gameplay here in the Sanctum is pretty poor. I get hit by a lot of stuff, but the build does pretty well when you actually dodge things. So single target is okay. There's a few upgrades in the build you can certainly do. I was looking at getting Reservation Helmet to be able to fit a Skitterbot setup, which would have increased our damage by about 20% more. I ended up not getting the craft done before I decided to move on to the next build. But the DPS is definitely decent enough, and I'm pretty happy with it. So this is just some Sanctum gameplay. As far as how good this build's been for Sanctum, honestly, it's basically ranged with how much attack range that Frostblades has, and it also freezes a lot of things, and if you get better damage, you'd have an even better time freezing things. Definitely not as good as SRS or Cold Tornado Shot, but I think it performs reasonably well, especially if you got 20 to 50% more DPS, you'd be insta-killing these things and definitely freezing them, which would make it a lot safer. I did complete this run despite how poor my play is. In these few rooms, I do get hit quite a few times when I should not. Sanctum has been fun. I got a few divines running them with this character. My strategy has basically just been blitzing maps with Legion, Red Influence, and then doing Sanctums, as I said earlier, and it has been decent enough at doing that. I haven't been doing the second phase of the boss, though, simply because I usually want my currency more than I want a fancy relic out of that, and I'm not too confident in this build's ability to do that, because its recovery is based on Life Leech, and during that really long red phase, I probably would have no ability to recover my energy shield if I ever got hit, and that would be a problem. So as you can see here, single target is not too bad. I can get rid of these little mini bosses fairly easily. Coming up here is going to be the Lycia boss fight. I just do the first phase in here, but I just wanted to kind of show how it performs in this. Um, I'm not really sure what downsides I have. Here you see me run right into the red fog. Again, I've not done enough Sanctums to truly play these well, but the DPS is adequate enough to get through this fairly easily, and you know, even soaking a few hits that I shouldn't be, it is a straightforward fight. So yeah, the character has been fun. I have enjoyed it. It's actually rather tanky. Having a good time with the all the Trickster leech. I went for the leech node. I grabbed a bunch of leech on the tree, so I leech 40% max ES per second, which feels very, very nice. That's my only form of recovery, but I do find it to be enough. Don't have a ton of evasion. Realistically, the mitigation on this build is pretty small, but having 5400 HP along with that much recovery has proved to be enough for the build to survive most things. Pretty smoothly hit level 94, almost level 95. Probably would have only needed another hour or so of grinding, would have hit 95. Highest character of the league, so, you know, probably just own up to the freeze capability of the crossplays themselves. As you see, I skipped the boss because I wanted my payout here. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the details of the build. We're going to be looking at our gear first because I want to go over the core mechanics, which really is everything is around the Varunastra blade. So what this sword does is it's just pretty much a 400 PDPS sword, pretty mediocre crit chance, you know, nothing too special. But the last line there is super important, and that it counts as all one-handed melee weapon types. Like I said earlier, that's claw, dagger, axe, sword, and one-handed mace. And so anything, absolutely anything that scales those effects will also scale Varunastra. And so we take advantage of that in a few different ways. I'm actually going to go ahead and show you the tree, because that's where most of the fancy scaling is coming from the tree. So, obviously we are going heavy on the dagger and claw. Crit chance, crit multi, loads of attack speed, lots of good stuff. The masteries on dagger are extremely powerful. 15% more maximum. We get culling strike and some extra spell suppression, and we've got the Nightblade effect and the Nightblade elusive effect here as well. I'm actually missing the elusive crit multi while supported by Nightblade simply because I needed that spell suppression, and the other nodes are actually a little bit stronger because, like I said, it is harder to keep Nightblade up as high as it was before with Withering Step. The other half of, also I take this sword wheel down here, mostly for the crit chance, and also because I want this mastery here, which gives me my Frenzy Charge generation, which is very, very nice for a single target, and so this is nice to grab. Then my Annoyance is actually Feller of Foes. This ended up being an extremely efficient point. You get 30% increased, 40% crit multi, and then 200 accuracy rating. Super, super strong, notable for our single target and just damage in general. And then probably the most interesting thing that I do for the tree is going to be this cluster jewel right here. Because the cluster jewel node has it split into two separate lines for the axe damage and the sword damage, we actually get both. So I run here a 12 passive jewel with 35% increased effect of axe and sword. This could also be claw and dagger, and that would similarly work. Mace and staff would actually not work because staff would not affect our damage because that is a two-handed weapon type. I went ahead then and have attack speed and energy shield, which are both very, very nice, and then the fire resistance is a nice bonus to the build, just making my resist capping a little bit easier. But as you can see, every single one of these nodes gives us 32% increased damage, 4% attack speed, 13 energy shield, and 4% fire res. This is as powerful as a lot of notables on the tree, and we can just shit out 10 of them. So each one of these nodes, I believe on average, is like 5% more DPS, 5 or 6% more DPS, as well as giving us energy shield and some resistances. This was an extremely lucky buy. I found it for 2 divines, basically one of a kind. It'll be very hard to replicate something this good, but you can certainly go for something that is missing the attack speed. It will definitely lose you some of the damage bonus. You know, the whole build itself will probably be about 10% less DPS if you don't have that attack speed. But it is what it is. This is just an extremely lucky find. make sure when you look this up, you stay kind of generic with what you're looking for, and that you're okay with various roles of energy shield, whatever that fire resistance can be. It could be attributes, all res, fire, cold, lightning, chaos, any of that stuff would be good. And then make sure you check for the different bases of axe versus claw and all of that. So that is pretty much the important part of the scaling of the build. And of course we're running Nightblade because it's extremely good. It's not as good as it used to be, but it is still very strong. And of course that works even though this is a sword. The main thing that I do need to go over as far as the mechanics of Varunastra, and this has been a thing that a lot of people are confused on. They actually had to get Mark from GGG to chime in on it in Reddit for people to understand what's happening here. As far as weapon-specific support gems, things like Shockwave, Nightblade, Close Combat. So you know how you can't use Nightblade with a mace, but you can use Shockwave with a mace, and you can't use Shockwave with a dagger. And how there are skills that you can use with a mace, and you can use with a dagger. So you can't use Venom Gyre with a mace, but you can use Nightblade with Venom Gyre. Well, so Varunastra could do Shockwave support because it counts as a one-handed mace, and it can also use Venom Gyre because it counts as a claw or a dagger. But what it can't do is use Shockwave with Venom Gyre, because Venom Gyre does not have any weapon type overlap with Shockwave. There's no weapon type that is across both of those weapons, or skill gems. And so that does not work. You cannot mix and match. So we can't slap Shockwave onto like Spectral Throw or Venom Gyre, which is as beautiful as that would be. We can't do that. You know, you can't slap Nightblade on, Frozen Legion or something, right? It is very unfortunate. Mark said it is a limitation of the software and how they program skill gems, and simply it is not worth the effort. He basically, that's what he said, not worth the effort to make Varunastra work differently than that. While that would make Varunastra a truly unique weapon, in that case, as far as what is possible with supports with your skills, it does still provide some unique scaling in the tree, and so I think that's pretty cool. The reason I went for this build, by the way, is Varunastra did get buffed by a decent margin or so, about 20% more PDPS. So I believe that is pretty much the entirety of the core mechanic of the build, as far as what makes it different than other cold convert builds. Everything else is fairly standard. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the gear first for you guys. So of course we got our Varunastra. I'm running a Sadist Garb here. I've got melee hits fortifying against unique enemies, and then effect of auras against unique enemies. Ideally, both of these would be generic, but I was running out of currency to roll for these mods, so I simply left it at this because at least against bosses I would have fortify and some extra aura effect. These gloves are terrible. This is a base I bought, and I was intending to get +2 strike skills on it. And I didn't want to go buy good gloves and then get some other gear pieces based around that, and then get a +2 strike gloves, try to fit it in, and then suddenly I don't have enough dexterity, or I'm missing resists, or anything like that. So I just kind of stuck with it with the intent of crafting on it eventually, and I never did. So these gloves are absolutely atrocious. You can certainly do better, and if I was intending to play this character longer, I would. But we do need that dexterity, just so you know that's not a dead mod. The one problem with being so tree efficient by taking all of these wheels is that we actually have very little stats, and we have to do a lot of stat fixing in our gear. The boots here, I just went for some spell suppress, decent energy shield evasion rating, and then the onslaught move speed. And then I went for the brittle ground, and the other implicit is just a filler because I didn't get something better. The brittle ground I tend to not really get on bosses because I spend most of my time pretty far away, but you know, whenever it does, it can be nice. Helmet, this one is also not super great. I basically bought the Assassin Mark Curse effect base on a Hubris Circlet with a good, base roll. Slapped a bunch of dense fossils on it until I got, pretty good energy shield. I actually used perfect fossils to get up to 29 quality first. Then I used some dense fossils, got decent energy shield, called it a day. I intended to come back to this and spam mana reservation essences and then roll high tier mana reservation implicit, and that would allow me to fit that skitterbot setup I was talking about before, with skitterbots, unbound elements, and bone chill, and then dropping precision and herald of purity. That swap over requires all the extra reservation efficiency, and it would also give us something around 20% more DPS in the build. But it's going to be very expensive to make, and I didn't get there. Assassin Mark Curse Effect, though, is actually our best enchant for a helmet. As you can see, we go Pandemonious. It's just a really good amulet. The blind is actually extremely nice, and then we get the 20% cold pen. The shield, actually, I really need this socket of gems have increased reservation efficiency. It's noted as mandatory to fit the R's I want to fit. Earlier, I had one with a bunch of resists, as you can see right here, much higher energy shield as well. This is one I was running before. I'm trying to sell it, as you can see. It's been sitting there for about a day, so no luck so far. But that's what I was running before. I then realized I was way over capped on resist, so I did a bit of shuffling, managed to fit one with attack speed, and decided to go for a bit of extra evasion rating. Obviously, it's a lower energy shield, but I get some nice evasion rating. And then I get the attack speed, which is what I wanted out of it. Then rings, this is basically just a hole filler, I guess. We get our accuracy rating, we get a bunch of stats, we need a shitload of strength and intelligence, so this gets it for us. And then it just has the nice luxury of a bit of resist, some fizz damage, and energy shield. This is just a nice find. You could probably find similar, it might be missing the fizz damage or something, for not too much, probably like 50C or something. This I actually crafted. It took a long time. I used, I got a Redeemer base, and I essentially spammed on Harvest, so you guys can know how I made this. Basically, you just spam a caster crafts on a Redeemer base ring. There's only two mods it can be: increased cast speed and Frostbite on hit. Frostbite on hit has a much lower weighting, so you're going to get Frostbite on hit every like 10 rolls or so is about what I guesstimated from it. And most of the time you're going to get utter garbage. The nice thing is, though, if you get even reasonable ones with, like, you know, life and an open prefix, or, you know, 1 T2 resist mod, open suffix, and, like, tier 3 life. You get stuff like that, and it can sell for, you know, a few dozen chaos. Upwards of a bit more if you get lucky, simply because Frostbite is pretty hard to get on a good ring, and there's decent demand. I crafted 4 of them that I tried to sell. One sold for about 100C, the other one for like 30. And these other 2 I have failed to sell just yet. The reason this one's so expensive is because it's perfect suffixes. There is no tier 1 Frostbite on hit. So I figured maybe someone would like to meta mod this into something really nice for a caster that needs Frostbite on hit, but alas, it seems no one's interested in that kind of crafting base. But anyway, that's how I crafted this. This ring is actually probably worth a couple divines, maybe even more, just because of the sheer amount of resists, and you can craft a life in the prefix, or maybe a minimum charge if you have enough tank. So I'll be definitely reselling this ring once I'm done with the build. Speaking of nice crafts, actually, this belt I basically just bought the base, slapped on a Crusader Orb, slapped on the Defense Catalyst, all while it was before I crafted it, and then I believe I spammed Dense Fossils again. So, you know, more Dense Fossils. Just kept slamming Dense Fossils. It was probably like 5C a shot. It took a good few attempts, probably like 30 or 40, and I ended up with something like this. This is actually a very nice belt. We got T1 energy shield, T1 increased. It's a low rolled, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And then we got some fire res and an open suffix to fix my strength, because again, I have no stats. This ended up being a very nice belt. This belt's probably worth like 2 divines or so, I would imagine. I think I checked it on Awakened PoE Trade, so pretty nice belt. I'm fairly happy with it. And yeah, so that's pretty much the extent of my crafting for the build. Actually, the last thing I want to mention as far as crafting, this chest I did some neat things with. When I bought the chest, the suffixes were utter garbage. Basically what it had was a high base roll on the Sadist Garb, and then 30 quality, and then these prefixes, which is just tier 3, tier 4, tier 2. Nothing insane, but pretty good because of the high base percentile and the 30% quality. It actually beat out better tiers on those prefixes on a lot of other things you could buy. So I bought it for 2 divines with really bad suffixes. So what I did was I used Eldritch Chaos Orbs. So essentially, as you can see here, it says if the Eater of Worlds is dominant, reroll suffix modifiers. So I grabbed this already 6-linked for 2 divines with really, really bad suffixes. I then rolled, I think, 4 Eldritch Chaos Orbs, and I landed literally just the fire res completely on its own. There's nothing else in the suffixes. So I was like, okay, that's pretty good fire res. I'm gonna try Exalt slamming this. Exalt slammed the 35 lightning res. I was very, very happy. Ideal would have been, like T1 spell suppression, but, I'm very, very happy with 35 lightning res, and I just needed to craft the spell suppression on it at the end. If you're asking about the split, that doesn't matter. I bought it. It was already split. So, just something to keep in mind. If you've got perfect prefixes on something like an energy shield base like this that you need to preserve, but you want to try and get something out of your suffixes on a non-influenced base, then I do highly recommend Eldritch Chaos Orbs. They were something like 30 or 40 Chaos when I was doing this crafting, and it took me from a 2 Divine chestplate to I believe this could easily sell for like 6 Divines after doing that. So, something to keep in mind when you want to get a chest like this for yourself for whatever Trickster build you may do in the future. As far as flasks, obviously we went Bottled Faith, obviously we went Taste of Hate. Both of these are really, really good for Cold Convert and Crit. I've got a Crit Chance Diamond Flask, Evasion Rating Quicksilver, and Attack Speed Jade Flask. Yeah, that's pretty much what we run for the gear. As far as the gems, we are running Frostblades, of course. We've then got Nightblade support, Awakened Cold Pin for the exposure. We got Energy Leech support because we are over leeching, so we'll constantly be full Energy Shield as well as leeching. This makes this a very, very potent support gem. We have Multi-Strike support and LA damage with attacks. That Overleech, by the way, is coming from Soul Drinker on Trickster. And then, let's see. So we got Flame Dash because I needed a movement skill that would go over walls for the Sanctum. That's why this is here. I then have Precision, of course. In our shield with the increased reservation efficiency, I have Herald of Purity, Discipline, and Hatred. I'm then running Blood Rage, which I actually can't run. I was basically just leveling it up because maybe I could figure out a way to run it. I wasn't really sure. I really wanted to run it, but I realized with CI, it wasn't really going to happen. And then I got Mark on Hit, Assassin's Mark with Quality, so I get the power charges against a single target. And then Whirling Blades. Summon Ice Golem attached to an Arcanist brand along with Frostbite and Tornado. So basically, this is to get a high-level Frostbite. You might be thinking, wait, you already have Frostbite on the ring. Well, the ring mod is level 1, which is 17% minus cold res. Frostbite at level 20 is 36. So I get another 19 minus cold res when Arcanist brand casts it. And the higher level one will stay active even with this ring repeatedly proccing a level 1 one. So the level 20 will maintain on a single target. So I basically just cast the Arcanist brand, it'll slap down the Tornado. I'm pretty sure the Tornado's doing almost nothing for the build. Theoretically, the Frostblades could be hitting it and adding a little bit of extra damage to the build, but there's no chaining action or anything fancy like that going on here. I did some Golden Rule testing to see if you could do chains off of a Tornado and hit a boss twice. It did not seem like it. Maybe I was doing something wrong, but I am pretty sure that that does not function. But this is simply for that reflect damage, and I don't really think it's doing a whole lot. So you could totally drop this to get a bit more socket room if you'd like to run another totem setup or something like that. Yeah. And then we're running haste just for the Vol haste, Ancestor Protector, and multiple totems for single target. So that is pretty much the gems. As far as the tree, we are Trickster. I take Polymath. This is one main reason I actually went Trickster, because this has a fairly secondary but reasonable synergy with Varunastra, because we get to take 3 different weapon type masteries on the tree as opposed to just one weapon type mastery. So we get essentially an extra 6% more DPS out of being Varunastra from Polymath. Then of course, one step ahead, it just makes the build feel great. We've got Escape Artist and Soul Drinker for the Overleech. I really wanted to go pretty hard into the leech idea, so I took Ghost Reaver, as well as this little wheel right here, which if you ever want to do Energy Leech, this is insane. So you get, this is the mod that increases the total amount you can recover per second. So 15% here, 15% here, 40% here, and then another 20%. Oh, this is life? Oh my goodness. I've been going this whole time with the wrong mastery. Wow. Good thing I caught it here. I can fix it in the POB. Oof, apparently I was on autopilot when I took that on my tree. This should be energy shield. That is a big mistake and definitely was hurting my recovery versus single targets. The reason I probably didn't notice it is because when you're clearing, you're getting all of your recovery from polymath. But wow, that's a big mistake. That's really funny. But totaling that all together gets you a nice 100% maximum total energy recovery. So 10% energy shield leech by default is 10%. This doubles it, and then this gives you another 100% increase, so it doubles it again. So you're actually looking at 40%. 40% energy shield leech. That's the same as a Volpact Slayer, and this is overleech, mind you. So this is the same as a Volpact Slayer's recovery on our ES pool. It feels very nice. Alright, so as far as the rest of the tree goes, we take the ES here, we come up for this dagger wheel, we grab the spell suppression because I needed it for the build. I path up here because this node is pretty nice, and we get another mastery for the exposure from Awakened Cold Pin. I get the spell suppression. Yes, come over here for the curse, CI, and I am currently pathing to this. Level 95 would have been influence, which would be actually a pretty sizable amount of damage and energy shield. I'll come down here for the leech stuff. I grab Ghost Dance, the dagger wheel here with the mastery for more maximum physical attack damage. I get this socket here. There's a lot of different jewels you can do. You're going to probably want to use POB's item finder to get yourself better jewels. That's what I did here. This is basically just a bunch of added damage, some energy shield, and attack speed. I hit the claw wheel here with the Nightblade effective elusive. This dagger wheel with the clawing strike. Hit the ES here. I grab my cluster jewel for all that extra damage. I get a Watcher's Eye here just with the recovery rate discipline and flat damage hatred. There are better ones out there, but this didn't cost me too much, so this is what I went for. The recovery rate discipline is not particularly expensive, and the hatred mod was like 2 divine. So I think I got this for 2.5 or something like that. And then another damage jewel here, spell suppression, accuracy rating, and precision reservation efficiency, and then the sword wheel for the frenzy charges, like I said. I think this mastery here is the critical strike chance node. Yep. And this one is the another useless node. I was taking this while I leveled, and it appears that I never replaced it. What do you know? You'd probably replace it with the boot one, I think. Look at that. Look at me finding all these issues with my build while I'm showing it off. Makes me look sloppy, doesn't it? But yeah, there you go. We take reservation efficiency here because we need it to fit all of the R's that we have. Alright, so I think that covers it for the tree. I'm going to link the POD down in the description. I'm just going to go ahead and show you this to show nothing special. This has been a fairly nice build. I've been happy with it, and you could definitely take this farther. There's a few upgrades I had in mind, like the Skitterbot setup that you can do. You're just going to need to get the extra reservation efficiency on the helmet. Of course, the +2 strike gloves would be a big upgrade and things like that. As far as the rest of the scaling for the build, it is just going to be whatever you would do for a Fizz Convert build. There's not going to be a whole lot more that is specific to Varunastra in scaling. So yeah, that has been my Varunastra Trickster. I've enjoyed this. The good build, probably the more well-rounded build out of the ones I've made so far this league. And yeah, this is going to be the only video for this character. I'm moving on to the next one. As far as the next one, I am so excited for this next build. It looks like it's going to be much stronger than any build I've made thus far, and actually for probably cheaper than this character. This character totaling at this point was somewhere around 15 divines, I would imagine. So I'm super excited for the next character, and it is really wacky. So I hope you guys can go ahead and slap a subscribe down there if you want to see that next build. I will give you a teaser. It is Bleed. Bleed in 2022. Who could have possibly imagined running Bleed these days? So yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys are too, and I will see you in the next video.